Okay, so recordings have started. All right. So the whole scientific method situation, two of the things that it did talk about um, in the Ed puzzle were independent variable and dependent variable, right? So those are two very important parts of the scientific method. The independent variables, um, the independent variable is the thing that you are testing, right? So let's say we're doing a scientific experiment about, anyway. Okay, so independent variable is the variable that you are testing. So let's say you have an experiment and you are testing to see how well music affects plant growth, right? So you would set up the experiment so that you have um, three plants in a greenhouse over here and three plants in a greenhouse over here. The plants over here have no music applied to them. The plants over here have rock and roll applied to them, right? So the independent variable is the music. You are testing the music on the plants, okay? So that is the independent variable. That is the thing that you are testing, okay? Now, the dependent variable is your results, okay? So whatever happens to those plants, that's the dependent variable because it depends on the independent variable. So for example, the no music plants have if the no music plants grew 10 inches, right? And the music plants grew 12 inches. That is the that is the dependent variable. Okay. Uh, so the results are your dependent variable. So that's the independent and dependent variable. Those are the two probably most important things in an experiment. Okay. Now, another thing that they talked about in the Ed puzzle was the constants. Constants are also very, very important in a scientific experiment. The reason being, so first of all, let's just talk about what a constant is. Just in general, like not necessarily in science, but what does the word constant mean? I would like somebody to answer that. So if you want to either type it in the chat or if you want to unmute yourself and actually talk, that would be great. So again, what does the word constant mean?
An ongoing repetition.
Yeah, exactly. Repetition, okay? Repeatability, consistency. That's what a constant is. So a constant in an experiment is really important because if you don't keep everything constant, you don't know if it's the independent variable that actually affected your experiment or if it's one of those other things that you didn't keep constant that affected it. So, for example, in our plant experiments, we would need everything to stay constant other than the music. So, the two greenhouses that we would have our plants in, they would have to be the same. They have to be made of the same materials. They have to be the same size. They have to be kept the same temperature. You'd have to water the plants the same amount. The water would have to stay the same temperature. The amount of sunlight they got would have to stay the same. Okay, so you guys are seeing a pattern, right? Everything has to stay the same. If it doesn't stay the same, then it's not going to be a very good experiment because, like I said, let's say you give one of them more water than the other, right? That way, if one of them grows more, you don't know if it's because you gave it more water or if it's because it's exposed to the rock and roll. Okay. All right, so the next thing that I wanted to talk about is the control group and the experimental group. Now, having a control in an experiment is really important too. That's another kind of thing that if you don't have that, you don't really know if your independent variable actually affected something or not. So the control group is the group in your experiment that stays doesn't have the independent variable applied to it. Okay. And the reason for doing that is so that you can compare your experimental group with your control group. So, for example, in our plant experiments, let's say we just took three plants and exposed them to rock and roll, and we didn't take three plants and not expose them to rock and roll. Okay, so we just have our three plants. They're sitting in the greenhouse, and you have rock and roll going, and they grow 12 inches. And you're looking at it as like, okay, they grew 12 inches. I don't know if that's good or not. I don't know if that's more than they would have grown without the rock and roll. Okay. So you need that control group to say, oh, the plants without rock and roll, they only grew 10 inches. So I can make a conclusion based on that, that the plants exposed to rock and roll got helped by the rock and roll because everything else was kept the same. And I have a control group to say, oh, the plants without rock and roll didn't grow very much, right? Does that make sense? Okay, I also, real quick, I actually meant to talk about this before, the stuff we just talked about, but I want to kind of specify what a hypothesis is, okay? Now, they kind of talked about it a little bit, and you guys are probably used to saying, well, a hypothesis is an educated guess. But hypothesis is not necessarily an educated guess. A hypothesis is kind of a prediction that you make from previously known information, okay? And I can't remember if they actually said this in the video or not, but a hypothesis has a reason why as well. So a prediction is just saying, I think that the plants with the rock and roll will grow taller. That's a prediction, right? A hypothesis would be saying, I think that the plants with the rock and roll will grow taller because the rock and roll will make the plants happy and they'll want to grow taller. Okay, that is a hypothesis because it not only has a prediction, but it has a reason why. Okay, so that's very important. All right, so do we have any questions about this whole scientific method situation? Are we good to go? Okay, so first, if you were not able to do either of those things today, the safety quiz or the ed puzzle, I still am missing some safety quiz people. Make sure you get that done. I did already enter the grades for that. So once you have it done, make sure you take a screenshot of your score and email it to me. Okay. And then if you weren't able to finish the ed puzzle, make sure you get that done too. Class is over in 2 minutes. So if you guys would like to take off a little bit early, you can. If you'd like to stay behind and ask me questions, you can do that as well. Okay. Okay. Have a great day, guys, and I will see you tomorrow.
Wait, did you say we have to take a picture of our score and send it?
Only if you didn't do it. If you, as of right now, have it done, then you're good.
Oh, all right.
Okay. The people, like, there were some people that didn't take it for whatever reason, and so those people, if you didn't do it, get it done and then send me a screenshot of your score.
All right.
Oh, I forgot to stop recording.